while they were doing that, they also brought religions, which religions began fighting each other. And the Kabaka said, now look, you fellows, you're saying you are believing in one God. Why do you fight each other? In fact, he killed a number of them. Buganda began resisting when these British showed their true colors.
Ngawe muchimanyi nawe nze ndi superpower. I have to celebrate with my lovely country, my mother Uganda. I don't know myaka 5 steady nenga bambi buli kimu kiri kiriya. I Eddie Kenzo, I celebrate 50 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, here with me on Conscious Lifestyle, I've got a very great man all the way from Uganda. We are on the 50th year and celebration of Uganda's independence. Honorable Ssemwogerere is here. Honorable Honorable Ssemwogerere, being the advisor of the kingdom, the royal advisor of the kingdom of Buganda, also the ex-category of the kingdom of Buganda. And he has taken us through the history of Uganda. It was very, very interesting. The message was inspiring. And here today, right with me, I've just got him. And I'm just going to ask him to literally summarize a few things as we hear. Thank you very much for being with us.
Well, thank you for interviewing me.
And we're so excited. I just want you to just literally just take us slightly and summarize in short words how Uganda literally has not been Uganda all the time. It has been the kingdom of Buganda. But can just slightly talk to us about how Buganda itself came into the position where we came into the colonization and becoming a property of the British Kingdom.
Well, this began in 1844. In 1844, the Arabs were the first foreigners to come to Buganda. Why they came to Buganda? Because Buganda, it was a very well-organized kingdom. There was sanity. The arrangement was conducive for people to live peacefully because even all disputes were being adjudged through courts of law. But in other areas, it may have been a bit different. So the Arabs were just looking for trade. But as the practice was at that time, whoever, any foreigner who came to Buganda had to report to the Kabaka. And therefore, these people also took advantage and introduced their religion of Islam to the king. And later on came an explorer known as Speke. Speke was looking for the source of the Nile. He was not looking for colonialism. But similarly, he had to go to the Kabaka to introduce himself before he did anything. He too was amazed by the arrangement and setup of the Buganda Kingdom, which almost looked similar to their kingdom back home, the British Kingdom. And in the same way, the Kabaka Mutesa at that time was impressed by the apparent civilization and knowledge which Speke exhumed. And Kabaka Mutesa wrote a letter, or Speke assisted the Kabaka to write a letter to the Queen, asking him to send some people to teach his people also. And when Speke went back to his country...
you mean Speke sent for more people from the British Empire to come to teach our people?
To teach our people.
Okay, now to teach them what?
Well, things of the world. Because to the Kabaka, who was not inducted in any modern, modern reading and writing and so on and so forth, Kabaka wanted these people to learn how to write and read and write, and also civilization.
Okay.
So when Speke went back to Britain, he wrote in the newspapers in Britain and in Europe that he found a kingdom which amazed him in the dark Africa, which was so organized almost on the lines of the British setup. So people came to extend their influences to Uganda. They came to teach religions, they came to teach our people, ostensibly to teach. But in fact, their intention was not actually to teach.
So colonization was also on their mind.
So the first person to come under that guise was Captain Lugard. Captain Lugard was a lord in the House of Lords in Britain. This one came with a company called Imperial East Africa, And this Imperial East Africa was the first to hoist a Union Jack on the hills of Kampala. Now, a Union Jack is the British flag. That means that he was now taking this Kingdom of Buganda, which eventually represented Uganda, as part of Britain. I mean, if you hoist your flag on somebody's land, that means you are taking over that land. So that was the beginning almost of colonialism.
Now, wait a minute. You talked about that they came and they taught. Now, by this time when they are teaching, our people are not primitive now. Are they primitive or they lack knowledge? And in the teaching, was it only to teach them English, or does also teaching involved other things? Because you also talked about that there were 14 newspapers that were literally functioning. 12 of them were in Luganda, I think, and 2 of them were in English, right? Now, was this before the teaching of the British, or they found? Okay.
The Kabaka wanted his people to learn how to read and write. And when the people of Buganda learned how to read and write, they started writing newspapers.
Okay. So now this was due to the coming down of the British, or the writing was already there?
No, the writing was not there. At that time, people were not writing and reading.
Okay.
They had some other kind of civilization, but not reading and writing.
Okay.
They knew how to rule themselves. They knew how to go to courts. They knew how to fight. They had a navy. They had a policemen and so on and so forth. They had courts of law. But reading and writing was something they didn't know.
Okay.
That's what the Kabaka wanted the Europeans to come and teach them.
Okay, so now we had a good administration. We had a very good, almost spiritual setup in the Kabaka Kingdom, but there was no literally putting it on paper, being able to put it on paper. And so the English came to contribute in that area.
That's right.
Wow.
But while they were doing that, they also brought religions, which religions began fighting each other. And the Kabaka said, now look, you fellows, you're saying you are believing in one God. Why do you fight each other? In fact, he killed a number of them. And some of them became the martyrs. You know the martyrs, Uganda martyrs? Uganda martyrs started with the kings of Buganda. King Mwanga actually killed them.
Okay.
So, since then, Buganda began resisting when these British showed their true colors, that indeed they have not come to help the Africans or the Baganda or the Ugandans, but they have come to colonize them. And they forced the Kabaka to enter into an agreement with them to allow them to collect revenues, to do some administration, and also to do some trade. And that was the beginning of colonialism. But then the Kabaka resisted this when he saw it was going a bit too far, and he began fighting. He left his palace, he went to Buddu. Buddu is one of these counties, and they defeated him there. He ran away, he went to Bunyoro, they teamed up with the Kabalega. You were asking me what other people were doing. Kabalega was also resisting the British. Okay. Yeah. So they fought together, but eventually they were overpowered and exiled to Seychelles in the Indian Ocean, where Kabaka eventually died. But he had left a son who was 3 years old. And these British arranged an agreement between Buganda and Her Majesty the Queen's government. That agreement is known as the 1900 Agreement. That is the agreement actually which almost took away the independence of Uganda. And that agreement was signed by the 3 regents who represented the Kabaka, because the Kabaka was just 3 years old. And since then, the struggles went on, and all of them were being perpetrated in Buganda and initiated by people of Buganda. Until, briefly, if you want, until when the Kabaka actually wrote a letter to the governor. The governor at that time was ruling Uganda, and told him, look, whatever we are doing is being taken away by the Europeans, and the rule, my people are tired of the rule, and he wanted him to sign an agreement with him to indicate that he has accepted the Federation of East Africa. The Kabaka said, no, I don't accept. And then the governor exiled him in 1953. He said, look, you in the 19 agreement, you agreed to cooperate with Britain, therefore you cannot refuse to sign. And the Kabaka said, no, I cannot sign because I don't have the mandate to sign. I must get the mandate of my Lukiko, that is the Parliament of Buganda. So they exiled him for 2 years, but when the Baganda got lawyers, they got 3 lawyers. One of them was a Muganda, another one was 2 constitutional lawyers, and they pleaded the case, and the Kabaka defeated. Because the Article 3 of the 19 agreement was saying that this agreement was between England, the king, the people of Buganda, and the parliament of Buganda. And the Kabaka said, I didn't have the mandate, and you people wanted me to sign. Therefore, the case, he defeated them in the case, and he was brought back very triumphantly. After that, there was also another agreement under which he came back, and in this agreement, that agreement, which I was appointed, the lawyers were appointed by the British, they agreed to whatever the Kabaka was actually demanding, and that was independence. So you can see that the independence of Uganda was actually, spearheaded by the Kingdom of Buganda, and especially by the King of Buganda. Because it was after that then they had elections after 6 years, and then we had the first Prime Minister, Benedicto Kiwanuka of the Democratic Party. He won elections in 1961. And later on, when Buganda said, no, we didn't participate very well, the elections were done again in 1962, where Obote teamed up with the Buganda, and he won the elections. Then he became the first executive Prime Minister of independent Uganda. Benedicto Kiwanuka had been of internal government. Is it internal self-government?
Yes.
And subsequently, we became independent. And because of the role played by the Kabaka, eventually Kabaka was elected the president of Uganda. He was the first president of Uganda. And then Obote became the prime minister. But the prime minister, when they had this, you had King Kano Kuraije.
Yes.
He said they stole gold and ivory from Congo.
Yeah, yes.
Because of these accusations, he put his 5 ministers in prison, plus the army commander. He also abrogated the constitution of Uganda. And when he did that, the president at that time said, no, you cannot do this. Now the prime minister said, no, you can't even protest to me. So he overthrew the entire constitution. He removed the President Mutesa, and he declared himself the president of Uganda. And because of this, the Kabaka was not happy, and sort of protested in words and letters. Then the Obote overran the palace of the Kabaka and sent him into exile, where he eventually died.
Now.